Eliot had always been fascinated by dolls. Not the cute plastic kind you find in modern toy stores. No, he was drawn to the old, handcrafted ones. The ones with porcelain faces, eerily realistic glass eyes, and delicate hands that seemed just a little too alive. So, when he saw the dusty "for sale" sign swinging outside a small, crumbling toy shop on the very edge of town, he couldn't resist the pull. It was like the shop itself was calling to him. Stepping inside, the air was thick with the scent of varnish, old wood, and something else. Something like old memories. Shelves, warped with age, were lined with dolls in various stages of completion. Some were just hollow torsos, others were missing limbs, but all of them had eyes. Eyes that gleamed in the dim light, following him as he moved, as if they were acutely aware of his presence. Behind the counter stood the owner, a hunched man with ink-stained fingers and eyes that seemed far too sharp for his frail, withered body. A dry, rasping sound escaped his lips. "You like them?" he asked, his voice like sandpaper. Eliot, mesmerized, could only nod. The old man smiled, a thin, knowing expression. "They watch," he continued. "They remember. That's what makes them special." Eliot couldn't afford much, but he couldn't leave empty-handed either. He bought a single doll, a tiny girl with meticulously woven braids, wearing a faded blue dress. As the old man wrapped it carefully in brown paper, he leaned in and whispered, his breath smelling of dust and decay, "She'll grow on you." Back at his apartment, Eliot placed the doll on a prominent shelf in his living room, a new centerpiece for his small collection. At first, everything was normal, but over the next few days, he began to notice small, unsettling changes. The doll wasn't quite where he'd left her. One day, a braid was slightly undone. The next, one of her tiny porcelain hands rested precariously on the very edge of the shelf, as if contemplating a leap. He brushed it off, convincing himself it was just his imagination playing tricks on him. Then, one night, he heard it. Faint giggling, like a child trying to stifle their amusement. It came from the living room. Heart hammering against his ribs, he crept out of bed. The doll was on the floor, sitting upright in the middle of the room. She wasn't supposed to move. Eliot froze, his breath caught in his throat, staring at the tiny figure bathed in moonlight from the window. She slowly tilted her head, and her painted lips seemed to curve into the faintest hint of a smile. A whisper, clear as a bell, echoed in the silent room. "Play with me." Eliot's blood ran cold. He snatched the doll and locked her in a heavy wooden cabinet. But every morning, she was back on the shelf, perfectly posed, her glass eyes staring directly at him with an unblinking, challenging gaze. Weeks passed, and the whispers grew louder, more insistent. At night, they were no longer just whispers. They were fits of laughter, high-pitched, strangely delightful, and utterly malicious. One evening, he returned home late from work, his heart pounding with a familiar dread. The apartment was silent. Too silent. He glanced at the shelf. The doll was gone. In her place was a small folded note. His hands trembled as he opened it. The handwriting was childish, spidery. "We're here now." He looked up, and his world collapsed. All the dolls he had ever owned, the ones hidden away in boxes, stuffed in closets for years, were standing in his living room. A silent, porcelain army. Their collective glass eyes glinted in the dim light, all fixed on him, and they weren't alone. Shadows flitted behind them, indistinct forms pressing close to the walls, just beyond the reach of the light. Eliot panicked, scrambling for the door. It was locked from the inside, the windows sealed shut, as if they were never meant to be opened. He was trapped. The dolls, in perfect, horrifying unison, tilted their heads. Their painted lips moved, and a chorus of whispers filled the room. "Play with us." And then, from the darkest corner of the room, a familiar, raspy voice drifted towards him, the voice of the old Dollmaker. "Don't mind them," it crackled. "They just need someone to show them the rules." Sometimes curiosity can lead us to the wrong kind of company. Sometimes the ones who watch us never, ever stop. And sometimes the dolls are just the beginning. Thank you for listening. Keep your shelves clean tonight, or the watchers might come for a closer look. If you enjoyed the story, don't forget to like, subscribe, and turn on notifications for more tales from the shadows. Until next time. Tonight's story is about something most of us take for granted, a simple reflection. We trust mirrors to show us what's real. But what if one day they didn't? This is The Reflection. Lena had just moved into her new apartment, an old Victorian building with tall windows, uneven floors, and a charm that felt almost too perfect. The rent was suspiciously cheap, but she didn't question it. She was just happy to have her own place. The bedroom came with an antique standing mirror, ornate, heavy, its bronze frame covered in faded floral carvings. She loved it instantly. It made the room feel elegant, alive. But that first night, as she was getting ready for bed, something felt off. She caught her reflection smiling, a half second after she'd stopped. It was quick, so quick that she convinced herself she'd imagined it. New place, creaky floors, jumpy nerves, that was all. But the next morning, she noticed it again. When she brushed her hair, her reflection's hand moved a beat out of sync. She blinked, and it corrected itself. That evening, she tried an experiment. She stood in front of the mirror perfectly still. Her reflection stared back, blank and motionless. Then, very slowly, its head tilted to the side. Lena didn't move. Her heart froze. She stepped back, and her reflection straightened again, smiling faintly. She threw a sheet over the mirror and slept with the lights on. The next day, she called the landlord, demanding to know where the mirror came from. "It's original to the building," he said casually. "Been there for decades. Some of the old tenants said it's part of the charm." She didn't think charm was the right word. That night, she woke to a soft noise, fabric shifting. The sheet covering the mirror was slowly sliding off, as if pulled from the other side. She couldn't move. She couldn't even breathe. The mirror was uncovered now, its surface dimly reflecting the glow from the streetlight. Her reflection was standing closer than she was. Too close. It pressed a hand against the inside of the glass, and she heard it. A faint, wet tapping sound from inside the mirror. She ran, slept on the couch, refused to enter the bedroom again. By morning, she'd made up her mind. She was moving out. But when she went to grab her keys from the dresser, they weren't there. She looked up and froze. In the mirror's reflection, she was standing at the dresser. Yes, but the door behind her, in the reflection, was open. In real life, it was shut. Then, from behind that reflected door, a shape began to emerge. Pale, smiling, moving closer, step by step. She turned, slowly, toward the real door. Nothing. When she looked back at the mirror, her reflection was gone. Just her empty room. And behind her, the faint sound of bare feet on the wooden floor. Sometimes mirrors don't show us the truth. Sometimes they show us what's waiting, just beyond the glass. Thank you for joining me tonight. Sleep well. And if you wake in the dark, don't look in the mirror. If you enjoyed this story, be sure to like, subscribe, and turn on notifications for more tales from the shadows. Until next time.